There are nearly 1 million people required to register for a sexual offense. In addition to doing the work of taking responsibility for their offense, sexual offenders also have to come to terms with the public shame, discrimination, and loss of privacy. Some are successful. Here's one story.
My name is Jeff, and I am a citizen of Florida, USA. Almost 20 years ago, in 2005, I made a series of harmful and antisocial decisions that led to my arrest and imprisonment on serious felony charges. However, since then, I have taken full and unequivocal responsibility both for my poor judgment and for the commission of my crimes. While I was incarcerated, my family and friends, except for my mother, gave no support. No visits, no money, no telephone calls, no letters. My mother was on a fixed income. She sent me $15 a month and a letter every few weeks for the first 2 years, from 2006 to 2008. Then she mysteriously stopped writing and sending money. I found out years later that she had developed dementia, and soon after, she had died. There was a work opportunity at one of the prisons where I was housed, where an inmate could earn about 50 cents an hour in order to save up for their release. But those with sex-related crimes were forbidden from working there because of the stigma. The policy of the Florida Department of Corrections was that work was mandatory and unpaid, so that one single work opportunity was the only one in prison that wasn't literally slave labor. When I was finally released in autumn of 2016, on my release papers under housing status was written, "homeless." But I had had the particularly good fortune to have been gifted $1,000 by a fellow inmate just weeks before my release. So I left prison with $100 on a refillable Visa gift card, but I had to wait several weeks to get the rest of the money, from which was deducted around $150 in administrative fees. The prison had never processed me for identification papers, so I had no ID, no birth certificate, no social security card, no identity, no home, and only $100. Of course, I had no cell phone either. Fortunately, my probation officer met me when I arrived at the bus station, along with a man who had a bed for rent at an informal group home for registrants. I left that halfway house every morning exactly when my curfew lifted at 6 a.m. I didn't return again until about 8 p.m. I spent every single day, the entire day, looking for work. I was turned down again and again. My $100 was dwindling fast, and the other $750 took about 3 weeks to arrive. I applied for and was granted emergency food stamps. Meanwhile, as I was looking for work, I would stop into lawyers' offices between times, telling them my story and asking for help getting Florida DOC to issue my identification. After visiting about a dozen law offices, one of the lawyers, a senior partner I later found out, took me into his office, got on his telephone, and arranged to have my birth certificate overnighted to the halfway house. He also arranged to get a replacement Social Security card sent to me. Once I had my birth certificate, along with my official release papers, I was able to obtain identification. I've since written to that lawyer and thanked him, sent him a gift card to a nice restaurant, and assured him that his help was not in vain. Eventually, I found work in permanent housing, room to rent, with a fellow registrant who owned a landscaping business. The work was grueling, and it had to be done in the harsh Florida heat and humidity, but I persevered. I was determined to succeed, for I was truly sorry for the harm that I had caused by my criminal activities. Soon, I got my driver's license and would rent one of my boss's cars on occasion. Then I saved up enough to buy a decent used car. After about 1 year, I began to look for a job that would be easier on my body. I had turned 50 years old. I actively searched for work for about 4 months, but the search was fruitless. I finally gave up and simply continued to work as a landscape laborer. A few months later, though, I got a call from the company for which I now work. I started working part-time nights and weekends while maintaining my full-time career as a landscaper. Soon, the part-time job offered me a full-time position as an IT systems manager, and that's what I currently do now. About 1 year ago, I decided to purchase a house with land. I worked extremely hard, worked on my credit, saved what I could, and exactly 1 week prior to the 4-year anniversary of my prison release, I walked into the title office and signed the papers for a beautiful and very desirable property. The home is situated on a private, paved road with only 3 other houses on it, which are owned by a sweet and intelligent older lady. A beautiful, lazy creek wraps around 2 sides of my property, and there is a 94-acre pristine wood beyond that. There is a very tiny house in the back of my property that I'm remodeling and plan to rent out. Meanwhile, I have segregated the master suite of the main house, which has its own bath and private entrance, and I rent this out. This covers most of my mortgage. Although I have all of this wonderful seclusion amidst nature, there are major shopping centers within a short walking distance of my house. There's city bus service, restaurants, movie theaters, home improvement stores, banks, and supermarkets, all within walking distance. I am enormously proud of my accomplishments. I have a wonderful job. My employer knows my entire background and is incredibly supportive. He is, I believe, as much a fan of mine as I am of him. But I'm constantly terrified of the idea of having to somehow find another job. What if he sells the business or retires? Even though I have entirely and thoroughly completed my criminal sentence, I am forced to appear in person at the county jail booking room 4 times each year at 3-month intervals, where I am interrogated and forced to disclose my private information, such as my name, the identification of any vehicle that is on the property where I reside, my work status, my educational status, my social security number, and many other personal and private details of my life. I am fingerprinted and forced to sign a registration document. My photograph is taken each time. All of my personal and private information is then posted to a publicly accessible website. Anyone who Googles my name will immediately learn of my past and all of my current information, including my current home address and current photograph. This makes it extremely difficult to find housing and work, and it leaves me vulnerable to vigilante attacks. I have had my tires slashed numerous times until I changed addresses. Furthermore, there is a huge patchwork of other confusing and arcane laws that vary from city to city, county to county, and state to state that only apply to persons, like myself, who are forced to be registered citizens. Violation of any of these laws is usually a strict liability felony. As a result, I am very afraid to travel. I walk through life as if I'm in a minefield. Even failure to comply with this registration scheme is punishable by prison time plus numerous other punishments. Any violation, no matter how minor, is legally considered a strict liability. This means that the court does not have the obligation to prove that the violation was intentional. So any mistake, no matter how slight or unintentional, means automatic guilt and a return to prison. I have never denied that I committed the crimes for which I was prosecuted. Indeed, I am deeply sorry for them. I've apologized to my victims and their families, and I insisted on and received mental health therapy during the entire time that I was incarcerated, about 10.5 years. And when I was released, I completed an additional 3 years of group therapy. I completely paid all fines, fees, court costs, and restitution. My entire criminal sentence has been entirely satisfied and completed. I have PTSD from seeing violence occur in prison, as well as having been victimized while there. Often, when I'm watching a movie at home, if a scene of violence comes on, I find myself standing up on my feet with my fists clenched and my teeth gritted and screaming ugly obscenities at the television screen. I have to remind myself that it's only a movie, and eventually I calm down. But I am angry, beyond the knee-jerk psychology of PTSD, also because I feel that I paid my debt to society in full. I feel that I did my time. I already paid for everything completely. I am a private, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen. Shouldn't I be permitted to enjoy the public facilities that my tax dollars go to fund? Places like the beach and the park and the swimming pool and tennis courts and the library. But there's a county ordinance that prohibits me being even 300 feet away from these places. I long for the quietude of the public park or the county library. I am not a second-class citizen. I try to deal constructively with my anger by turning it into activism on behalf of others, like myself, who have made mistakes in their past, but who want to move on with their lives with simple peace and quiet dignity. I continue to grapple with my anger. I believe I'm slowly getting better at it. That's my story. Thank you for taking the time to get to know me.
Jeff's story is not unusual. There are stories like this all across the United States. Check out the story links for more details. To learn more about the laws in a specific state, visit NARSOL State Law Wiki at the link below. To get involved, visit narsol.org and join, donate, or volunteer. Visit lives.narsol.org to learn more about this video project and how to participate. We make every effort to assure our stories and law references are accurate. However, they should not be considered as legal advice. Laws constantly change. Please consult an attorney to confirm how they apply in your specific situation, and click the like and subscribe buttons to hear more stories about the Registry.